Hello, everyone. I'm really excited here today. I've got a very special guest. And this is a special guest who, to be honest, 2 weeks ago, I had no clue who he was. And many of you might have had no clue who he was. But he's like burst onto the scene like a ray of common sense sunshine and onto the proverbial hero charts, at least to the Jewish people, with a bullet after confronting anti-Israel protesters at UCLA. His name is Milagro Jones. He's here with me today. Milagro, thank you so much for your time. How are you going? I assume things are an absolute whirlwind for you right now.
Yeah, so basically, everybody around me has their opinion, has their, perspective. But for me personally, I'm just focusing on positivity. I'm just focusing right now on using music, arts, and culture to present a positive message and facilitate open and honest dialogue.
Well, no one can argue with that. And I mean, you've been on, how many interviews have you done before this one today, by estimation?
That's a good question. I really couldn't give you a number. I really just mostly focus on school, so just doing my homework, reading the texts that are assigned by my professors. But besides that, people have asked me to pop up here and there, and if I have time, I'll just show some love.
Fantastic. And again, I really appreciate your time. I know you're really busy. So for those of my viewers out there who I assume are living under a rock, or they haven't heard of you or don't recognize you, but a very distinctive look, and I'll ask you about that a bit later. I just want to show about a 2-minute clip, a taste of some of your experiences at UCLA, which you actually uploaded to TikTok.
Cool.
So this is a public university. Did you not realize that? Yep, walking through. You got a problem with that?
Please don't push me.
This is the direction I'm walking. You standing in my way. Watch out, bro. Bro, watch out. Stop touching me, bro. Bro, now y'all harassing me, bro. Real talk. No, you can't ask me to leave because you don't own this spot, bro. You thought you own this?
Please stop touching me.
Bro, you touching me? What is you talking about, bro? Bro, you're not pushing nothing on this, bro. Are you tripping? Y'all probably don't even offer old women y'all seats on the bus. Y'all probably just sit there and look at them and look at your phone. What's your problem, sir? You said you had a problem with me, right?
You to leave.
Bro, I'm an African American. You are a white man telling me to leave a part of the campus. Do you want me to go to Jasmine Rush and show her a photo of you, the dean of students, and let her know that you was harassing me?
Am I harassing?
Yeah, you are. You're asking me to leave a public place. You as a white man are asking an African American student to leave a public area at UCLA campus. That's called racial discrimination, and that's a violation of the Civil Rights Act. So do you want to get out of my face now?
I mean, I think your presence is agitator on purpose.
What's that?
You're being an agitator on
I'm being an
purpose.
agitator, so you think the First Amendment is agitation?
No, no one. See, you're drawing lines that aren't there.
Okay, because I'm
I'm
practicing the First Amendment right
and you're
to
allowed
record.
to do that.
Right. So I'm recording over here. This guy's recording me. You're not talking to him. Look, he's recording me. You're not talking to him. Am I? I'm allowed to go where I want. You seem to be blocking my daughter's stroller from going forward. You just spilled my drink. And you're blocking my child's stroller from moving forward. That's a little weird, bro. You're acting a little weird, bro. Yeah.
You can stand on the outside of the
Yeah, I can stand anywhere I want. Yeah, that's the good part about being a student. Bro, you know there's a 9% acceptance right here? So I had to work pretty hard. Yeah, I got into UCLA, 9% acceptance rate, so I can go where I want on this campus. Do you work for UCLA? Because I know Jasmine Rush, the dean of students, would like to know why you're putting your hand in one of her students' faces.
That's great.
So we're going to have to get you identified, buddy, for harassing an African-American student at school. Look at these white liberals, bro. Look at these cosplayers. White liberals, white libs cosplaying as the oppressed, stopping an African-American student from accessing the school. Nothing new.
Unbelievable. There's quite a bit to unpack here. So what exactly precipitated the initial confrontation? Did you somehow go up and instigate with them, or were you just minding your own business? What exactly happened leading to these scenes that we just saw?
Yeah, so on Thursday, April 25th, protesters showed up at UCLA. They had announced through their SJP social media that they would be regrouping at UCLA after getting kicked to the curb from USC. And so the next day, on Friday, April 26th, I had a class at UCLA. I'm a undergraduate researcher, so basically I'm a full-time student there. Besides being an English major with a concentration in creative writing, I also do research about drill music as a unique form of African American literature. And so I showed up to the campus to go ahead and meet with the other students that are in the research group, which we do every Friday in our cohort. And when I went to our meeting space, which is in Powell Library on the third floor, it was blocked off by a bunch of protesters. So I checked my email and it said we had class at Murphy Hall. So I went, pivoted, and just checked out the encampment. They wouldn't let me in, so I had to, kind of force my way in because they were trying to physically stop me from entering the encampment. And I let them know that as a student, I'm allowed to be in that space. So I went inside the encampment, looked around, took some pictures and a little video, and they followed me around. I was asking them, like, do you like the smell of my cologne? You're breathing down my neck. And it was just really weird because, when I'm in the hood, if I go inside the store and want to buy something, I get followed around, and it's hurry up and buy. And now I'm at UCLA where I've never experienced something similar to that, and I'm being followed around as if I'm a shopper in the hood, trying to shop in a corner store. So I wasn't feeling that, but I had class, so I started heading on my way to class, and this random person with a camera and a microphone and a camera was asked my opinion about Israel and Palestine. Now, in that moment, I didn't really have an opinion about Israel and Palestine specifically, but for some reason, when he asked me that, I just explained to him that the same way that the United States of America is a sovereign nation and had a right to defend themselves after 9/11, is the same way that Israel has a right to defend themselves after experiencing a terrorist attack. And I didn't really know anything to say that. I don't know where that came from, but I just went on my way to class after saying that, did my class. We just ate some pizza. It was a chill class. We listened to a presenter, and then I came back, and I was passing the encampment again. I went inside the second time, and when I went inside the second time, some faculty members from FJP, Faculty for Justice in Palestine, started pushing me with open palm pushes, and then they started body checking me. And then they linked up arms with a bunch of grad students and started saying 1, 2, 3, push, 1, 2, 3, push, 1, 2, 3, push. And they tried to just shove me out of the space. And so I let them know that as a student, I got my rights to be there, and they wasn't feeling accordingly. So I ended up realizing I couldn't push back against 20, 30 people because I'm just by myself at the moment. So it's like trying to play tug of war with 20, 30 people. So I sat down cross-legged and I let them know, like, what are you gonna do? Pick me up, carry me, and throw me out of the space? You're not gonna do that. So I sat there. I got on the phone with UCPD, the University of California Police Department. I asked them what my rights was in that situation. Could I defend myself? I was feeling like throwing bows, so I asked, could I defend myself? And they let me know, hey, are you the guy in pink? I was like, yeah. They was like, we know who you are. We know what's going on. I'm like, cool. So are you gonna send some officers to help me? And they were like, no. The administrators know what's going on, and they let us know if and when you get out of there, you can go talk to the administrators. I was like, I don't want to talk to the administrators. I just want these people to let me go free. And they told me, well, you can't physically defend yourself, but if once you go free, you can come down here and file a police report. So they held me from that point for about an hour. And I got on FaceTime with my brother. It took him about an hour to get down there. When he was 2 minutes away, I told one of the faculty members who was in charge of holding me that once my brother shows up, he's 2 minutes away. You can see he's on FaceTime. I held up the phone and showed him the phone. I said, once he gets here, I'm telling him it was all just you. Everyone around you, I'm not blaming it on none of them. They're getting the pass. It was all on you. And this is my big brother, so he's not going to like that you're holding his little brother against his will. So at that point, they let me go free. My brother walks in. They come and apologize. And this is where it shifted. If everything had happened like that, I've experienced so much discrimination here in Los Angeles. I've been stopped for walking through Los Feliz with my daughter by LAPD. I've had the LASD sheriff deputy break into my home before. I've had so much discrimination. I could write a book about that alone. So if it had just ended like that, I would have probably went on my way, forgot about it the next day. But for some reason, these dudes decided to tell me that the reason why they held me against my will is because they mistook me for an Israeli agitator. Now,
Really?
not being an expert on anything that happened, I realized immediately that is a form of anti-Semitism. You discriminated against me because you thought I was Israeli. That's wrong. That's wrong, period. So from there, I started going hard. Pushing back against their whole agenda. And from there, it's kind of just, it's became what it's became.
Oh. Well, I mean, I'm just listening to you explain and I'm getting even more infuriated. There's just so many things here which are wrong. First of all, you mentioned faculty members were holding you. So it wasn't just these misguided Gen Z. We'll get to that in a minute. You know, these Gen Zs who have these misguided views. You had actual faculty members which you'd hope would know better, you know, more experienced, so-called intelligent people that were not just joining in, but perhaps leading this terrible. It was an assault on you. It was
Right.
an actual assault and like unlawful imprisonment, if I can put it that way, right? Because I was stopping you in your tracks. So that's the first thing that sort of jumps out at me. What's also interesting is that they thought you said that they assumed you were Israeli.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, but on some kind of perverse level, I have a bit of satisfaction in that. And I'll explain what I mean by that. Because their whole narrative is sort of based, or a lot of their narrative is based on this misguided, actually inaccurate narrative of Israelis/Jews as the white colonizers. And you're obviously not white.
Right.
And by the way, they're right in the sense that they're recognizing the diversity of Jews and Israelis. Because obviously there's lots of black Jews. And hopefully when you come to visit us, and we'll talk about that later too, you'll see that, and maybe you already know about that. We come in all colors and all ethnicities, because Judaism is a religion as well as a nation. So on some level, then thinking you're Israeli kind of gives me some satisfaction. I hope I'm making myself clear with that. But the treatment that you suffered at their hands is absolutely infuriating. And I've got to be honest with you, man. If it happened to me, I think, and I'm not a violent person, it might have been, it must have been holding back every sense of your fiber to restrain yourself from pushing back. What was it that led you to say, listen, I'm not going to, you know, get physical with them, even though they've gotten physical with me and I'm acting in self-defense?
Right. So there was a time when I was in East Hollywood and I got stopped by the police for walking around with my daughter and minding my own business. And I ended up being held at Men's Central Jail overnight without any charges.
No way.
I didn't do anything wrong. And by me being held there, I was separated from my daughter, and my daughter had to spend the night with the Department of Children and Family Services. And by the time I got out of Men's Central Jail downtown, they released me in the early morning hours. I had to search this whole city of Los Angeles to find my daughter. No one would give me directions on where she was, any type of help on how to find her. So I had to go to these administrative buildings of DCFS and just knock on these buildings that don't allow the public in. And this was around the COVID time, so they was already shut down to the public. So it took me hours and hours and hours to find my daughter and get my daughter back to my apartment. And when I did, she told me that someone had smacked her across the face. And when she went to that police officer to tell them what happened, that officer told her to shut up and wouldn't even hear her out. So by that happening, I knew that when I got angry and I really wanted to throw bows at these people, I remembered what happened and thought to myself, if I do what I really want to do, I'll go to jail. They won't go to jail. These are privileged. These are elitist people with families, with money. Even if they did go to jail, it would mean nothing to them. Whereas if I go to jail, my daughter's going to have to go to the DCFS. No one's going to be there to get her. No one's going to be there to explain to her why her dad's not picking her up. And I had no choice but to have this Zen-like quality of just accepting whatever they want to throw at me. And so, you know, luckily I've studied Dr. Reverend Martin King Jr. Luckily, you know, I've studied a lot of different pacifists across the spectrum, from Jainism to Christian, all different types of pacifists. And luckily I could channel some of that, but it definitely wasn't easy. It definitely took every fiber of my patience, of my humility to let these people just walk all over me and turn the other cheek to them.
I mean, props to you. And I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, you see yourself obviously as a father first and foremost, above everything else. And I've watched your videos. You're doing everything for your daughter, your sweet, sweet, very cute daughter who was in one of those videos. And I mean, the odds are stacked against you. I know enough about the US and the discrimination that is there to know that the odds are against you. And, you know, all I can say is props to you, and we're with you, man. I mean, it still would have been very difficult. And one of the videos that I didn't show there, but I believe happened, because I saw it elsewhere, there was one of the protesters called you the N-word, and he threatened to shoot you. So, I mean, that's crazy. And some of the times I saw your daughter was there. Did you ever fear for your life and or your daughter's life while you're walking through these thugs?
Yeah, definitely. So in that moment, I believed that he was going to carry out his threat. And he did actually end up snatching my phone and smashing it on the Jan steps. And by him grabbing my phone is where it snapped into me. It was a very urgent situation because my phone actually has my daughter's baby pictures and stuff saved into the internal memory. So I had to get that phone back. And by me struggling to get that phone back, he took it and threw it down and smashed it on the steps. Someone sucker punched my brother in the head. He stole my selfie stick. And while he's doing this to me, the people on both sides are just chanting, peaceful protest, peaceful protest, peaceful protest. And then a bunch of them kind of like shove us and push us down the Jan steps, around into the grass, surround us, yelling at us. A large dude is holding me against my will, threatening that they're all going to jump us. So yeah, it was crazy at that going through that moment. And then with my daughter, the surprising thing to me, my daughter has gymnastics at UCLA, and the surprising thing to me was when I'm walking with my daughter to the bus stop, which the fastest route back to the bus stop is going past this encampment, and then I seen someone I know named Ryan was in the encampment. So me and my daughter went to say what up to him. My daughter even drew him a picture and gave him the picture, and the protesters even surrounded me with my daughter. And they didn't even have the respect to say, like, hey, if we have a problem with you, we have a problem with you. We'll see you when we see you. But you with your daughter, we'll give you a pass until next time. No, they still stopped me, still harassed me, still stopped me from moving freely while I was with my daughter. So to me, that's despicable. And that crossed the line. That really crossed the line. And that they was calling me a Zionist, Zionist, Zionist. They crossed the line. I went out and bought some Zionist shirts, wore them proudly in front of them the next time I saw them.
Yeah.
I went and learned how to make shirts and made my own design of a Zionist shirt. And I'm from the hip hop background, so if you diss me, I'm coming back at you. If you call me something, I'm gonna wear it with pride and be what you're saying about me. So yeah, I really just
fantastic.
I try to just hold my own, you know.
Yeah, and that's a good segue to my next question. So you're fighting fire, not with fire, but with your wit and your intellect. And that's what I loved and about, you know, the videos and we saw a bit of a taste before at the beginning of this. And the way that you handled them was masterful. You handled them, and it's something that resonates with me because on my website, I try to use humor and mockery to deal with anti-Semitism. That's my whole shtick, as it were. And I saw you did, you know, a similar thing. You use humor and mockery to disarm these people. They're violent and they're nasty. And you basically started by being polite, but then you, as we noticed in those videos, you start giving it back to them. You're needling them, and you know, knowing they can't do anything if unless they want to, you know, break the law and perhaps get arrested. Perhaps the police will do something at a certain point. And not only that, you were showing their hypocrisy, which was fantastic. Any neutral observer watching your videos would come to the conclusion that these are the bad guys, the protesters, and you're the hero of the piece, which you are, by the way. And so I, you know, first of all, on a personal level, and this is one of the reasons I really wanted to interview you, is I respected how you handled the situation. It was brilliant. It was really, really brilliant. Not just that you're pro-Israel and I'm pro-Israel, and of course, I respect that and I love that. But it's just the way you handled things. And you really turned the tables on them. And that whole thing about how you know, these are these woke, you know, social justice warriors, you know, fighting for the underdog. That's their whole shtick. And the way that you painted the narrative, which was true, by the way, as they're stopping a black guy, these white, elitist, rich, privileged, spoiled brats, stopping the black guy who worked very hard to get into UCLA. You didn't get into UCLA, I assume, from your, you know, your lineage or, you know, your inheritance. You worked, and we'll get into that more. You worked your ass off to get into UCLA the old-fashioned way, good old-fashioned hard work, and the school of hard knocks, and we'll explore that a bit as well. But you've alluded to it a bit. You haven't had an easy life up until now, and just the way that you painted that, and you could see in the videos the guy was like, he had his mask on, but you could tell from his eyes he was like a deer in the headlights. So that was also absolutely brilliant. And you also hit the nail on the head. I love this. When you describe them as white liberal cosplaying as the oppressed, that was absolutely insanely genius of you. That's exactly what is going on with these people. They're these, more often than not, rich white kids. And I think to assuage their guilt or something for having grown up in comfortable conditions, they put on their proverbial Che Guevara T-shirts, or in this case, the keffiyehs, and they feel like their life has meaning because, they're kind of standing up for the oppressed. So I think you hit all nails on the head with, the way that you responded. So Milagro, speaking about cosplaying, or maybe more specifically costumes, it's pretty hard to miss the fact that you, right now, but also when you were in these videos at UCLA and elsewhere, you have what I assume is a wig.
No,
and
this my hair. This my hair.
Oh, it's dyed hair, but it's a look, right? It's a look where you have the blonde hair. It's fantastic, and the pink shirts.
Yeah.
And I know enough about you to believe it's deliberate, that there's some sort of particular reason that this is how you present yourself. Am I correct in that assumption?
Yeah, so the way that I dress right now, like if you see, like I've been in the Bruin magazine called Prime for the way I was dressing. When my sister passed away, I was wearing all black. Everything was dark.
Oh, sorry.
Might wear the pentagrams, real gothic stuff. But the way I dress right now, it's just in memorial of Hella Sketchy. So Hella Sketchy was a recording artist here in Los Angeles, California, who overdosed, and he was up and coming. He was on the rise. He was very young. He was half white, half Filipino, and he was really dope. And he called his fans Cupid soldiers, and that's why, like on TikTok, my page is Cupid Soldier. On X, formerly Twitter, I couldn't use Cupid Soldier; it was already taken, so I'm Cupid General. But yeah, I just dress the way I dress, and I had that look because it's just a memorial of Hella Sketchy. He was just like a person who expressed himself freely with his fashion, with dyeing his hair different colors, and like. He would wear Pokemon stuff with the Gucci, so he was just a different guy. So yeah. It's for Hella.
All right, that's fantastic. That's very touching. So getting back to these white liberals. So when you think about it, it's just this odd alliance. You've got these white liberals who are aligning not just with the Palestinian Arab side, but in many cases they're aligning actually with Hamas.
Right.
And the autocratic terrorist rulers of Gaza, who stand for things which should be an anathema to them. I mean, just for example, suppression of women's rights, suppression of gay rights, just to name a couple. And, if many of these people, and you saw in the videos, the way they presented themselves, if they actually got their wish to go to Gaza, they'd probably be thrown off a building, to be brutally honest.
Right.
So I'm just interested in your opinion as to why you think we have these strange bedfellows. Why is this the case?
Well, I think Malcolm X already, warned African Americans that our worst enemy is the white liberal a long time ago. And at the end of the day, if you even look at like a lot of the street gangs, the way that a lot of inner city street gangs were able to grow and get to the level that they're at. I read this book that an author wrote about just street gangs in Chicago, Illinois, and he wrote about Mayor Richard Daley and about the different gangs in Chicago when he was in office. And they were really fostered, funded, and able to affect the maximum negative impact on our communities because the white liberals really propped them up, put the money behind them, gave them entire churches to use as headquarters. These was violent street gangs, and they're giving them churches that they purchased in the black community to prop them up. So they always have this white savior mentality, but whatever they do, for some reason, it always seems to make things worse for who they're trying to help. I've never heard a story of white liberals showing up any people of color's community and actually making a positive impact. They usually help the people that are the most dangerous, that have the worst perspective, and then let's say they'll help the gang member who's released onto the streets to terrorize the community. But then there'll be an honor student who lives in poverty who's doing everything right, and they'll turn a blind eye to that kid. So they're just ridiculous, and I've seen it over and over and over again throughout my life, and it just drives me insane that they always show up with the cape on, acting like Superman, and really they end up being as Lex Luthor. So I just don't get it.
Okay, that's a really interesting theory. I've got my own theory I want to share with you just to get your reaction and maybe, you know, a bit of food for thought. But I believe that it's this neo-Marxist ideology that's driving it. And you know, we have Marxism, or this neo-Marxist Soviet ideology that probably permeated, started probably in the 70s, and they've infested the colleges and the you know, the young generation with this sort of ideology. And what's the narrative of this ideology? It's that when you have a perceived weaker party or oppressed party and a perceived more powerful party, that the weaker party is weaker because the perceived more powerful party has trodden on them, has done something wrong. It's sort of the opposite of capitalism, which rewards hard effort. You know, in this Middle East war, you know, Israel is the perceived you know, powerful party, and you know, we have a good economy, and we've made a lot of good strides. I'm not going to say we're impoverished by any stretch, but that's the hard work. That's been just survival, hard, you know, honest work, much like you've done to get your life on track, but on a more macro level. And so I believe it feeds. So they're kind of like neo-Marxists. So that's why we have these strange bedfellows, because this is the template for their work, and you can kind of stick it. Just like what you described with the black communities and the white saviors. Yeah, the black communities are the ones who seem to be oppressed or are oppressed. It fits that mold, right? And we're the white people that, and you know, I'm not saying that there's never truth to that, right? But sometimes the weaker party has been oppressed, but it doesn't fit, for instance, the Middle East conflict, not in any stretch of the imagination. And that's anyway my theory. I think other people believe that as well. I'm just leaving it with you. And maybe it's something you can, you know, dig deeper into. But otherwise, it just seems very weird that there would be you know, have this alliance with these basic fundamentalists, these Islamists.
I know some of the people in SJP. They're organizers, and I've heard their ideology. And you know, I have to push back against their Marxist ideology, just for the simple fact that historically, if you look at Angela Davis, she went ahead and sacrificed a lot of young black men for her Marxist ideology, to the point where she even gave the firearms to George Jackson's brother for the shootout he had in the courthouse, where a judge was killed and where he was killed. And George Jackson had an indeterminate sentence of 1 to 100 years and ended up being a martyr for that cause. So at the end of the day, me as a black man, I know that they'll use us when it's convenient to use us for their Marxist ideology. And then when it's not convenient, they forget about us and use their next oppressed community and try to prop them up as the next thing, fighting against capitalism, fighting against whatever they want to label it as. So every quarter at UCLA, obviously, it's a very Marxist institution. Like I would say most of the professors that I meet, most of the students I meet support Marxism. I have to push back against that every quarter. And with the SJP organizers, I had to push back against that. I invited a lot of SJP organizers off camera to leave the encampment and go camp out at their mom's vacation homes, because their moms have vacation homes, and there's better things for them to be doing. They should be studying for their midterms. So off camera, I try to actually give them good advice and let them know that, you know, they're being rebellious, they're fighting the system, they're fighting the man, even though they are the man. And, you know, I just try to explain to them they should go ahead and do the right thing, but they chose to stick around in an illegal encampment, fight the police, shoot, spray fire extinguishers in the police's face, throw things at them. And when it was all said and done, they got a slap on the wrist of a citation, not even a misdemeanor charge. If I fought a police officer in LA, I'm not going to see the next day of my life. And if I do, I'll have serious felonies. So the privilege that these guys were able to have at that institution, and then flip it around in their press statements and say that they were victimized by the police and it was so horrendous what happened to them, it just baffles me, and it goes beyond anything I can even comprehend.
No, wow. Okay, so I wanted to ask something else that might not have been clear until now. When you were describing what had happened, you mentioned something when they asked you a question, and there was an answer which sounded like you thought Israel had the right to defend itself. But when I look at some of your earlier videos, by your own admission, you were an ally of the so-called liberation movements, the Palestinian liberation movements, for many years. And you initially sympathized, I think in some of your earlier TikTok videos, you said, hey, I saw these protesters and, I was sympathetic towards what they were protesting for. And in fact, when I dug into your TikTok videos, I noticed that on October the 13th, barely a week after the tragic events of October the 7th, you have a TikTok video where you have Free Gaza being sung behind you. So it would be fair to say, right, Milagro, that you were, let's say, maybe more pro-Palestine than pro-Israel. Would that be a correct summation?
I think I'm still pro-Palestine. I want to see Gaza free from Hamas. I don't think there's anything that could be more pro-Palestine
Okay.
than that.
I hear what you're saying, but not in that sense. Meaning you wanted, when I say pro-Palestine, I mean more on the anti-Israel side, meaning thinking that Israel were more in the wrong than the Palestinians. That the Palestinians look, it's a complex issue, so it doesn't have to be binary that you think everything Israel does is wrong and everything Palestinians do is right. But you even in one of the videos, you had all these videos where you were responding to criticism, and you had something like a Free Palestine shirt on in one of the videos. And as I've seen more and more videos come out in your interviews, you've morphed. Well, you've actually come out and said you're a Zionist. I mean, that you've been clear about that. You're a Zionist. You have the Zionist shirt. And it's interesting also because a few weeks ago you admitted you didn't even know what that word meant, which is a very honest. I wish most people were as honest as that, because many of these protesters also it's one of the most misused, misunderstood words which are out there. So that was kind of this raw honesty that also came through. So this is what I've got to ask you. Because obviously everyone's heard this, and you've been through the most despicable, vile behavior, violence, gaslighting, you name it, it was perpetrated against you. So was it just their terrible behavior? You said, listen, I don't want to be on the side of these guys. These are horrible jerks. So just by default, I'm going to be on the other side and I'm going to be a Zionist now? Or rather, did it make you rethink your core assumptions about the conflict and then trigger you to dig deeper into the conflict? And now you've done more research, and that's, you said, listen, I'm a Zionist. How did you evolve your views?
Yeah, so I think in any conflict, there's going to be casualties. If you look at the United States of America and our wars that we prosecuted against Iraq and Afghanistan after the terrorist attacks on 9/11, I don't think that it's unsupportive of Afghanistan for the United States to liberate them from terrorism. And I don't think that it's unsupportive of Palestine to support Israel liberating them from Hamas, which is a terrorist organization. I think at the end of the day, Israel was attacked. They're a sovereign nation. They have the right to defend themselves. And by them prosecuting the war that they're prosecuting, we as United States citizens are their ally, and we should support them. So I think that by me saying free Palestine, I think that means nothing more than supporting, the people who are innocent casualties. And I think in any conflict, there's going to be innocent casualties. And I would never see myself not supportive of any casualty. If there's a drive-by in the hood and it's two gangs, and unfortunately the gang member doesn't hit the other gang member, he hits a kid, I'm gonna be in support of that kid in that neighborhood being freed from gang violence. If Israel experiences a terrorist attack and there are hostages taken and over 100 of them still haven't been freed to this day, I'm going to support Israel getting their hostages back and then being with their loved ones. If Palestine has a terrorist organization that's running amok, that's making sure that even the citizens who get aid from the United States don't get to access that aid, and instead the terrorist organizations get to decide how to use that aid, I'm going to support them being free from that terrorist organization. I support for all human beings across the world to have basic human rights. And Hamas would never give the citizens basic human rights because they don't believe in that. The leaders of Hamas, as we know, are these ultra rich individuals. The funding comes from these ultra rich individuals. They get to live this privileged lifestyle. It's like a pyramid scheme, and the people on the bottom have to suffer and struggle. So at the end of the day, I love everybody, and I want everybody to win. I want everybody to eat. I want everybody to enjoy life. I want everybody to be able to have peace and unity with their loved ones and their family and celebrate their accomplishments. And Hamas would never allow the people to celebrate their accomplishments and do what they want to do. So I don't feel like by me saying I'm a Zionist that is like mutually exclusive to where I can't also say that I support the Palestinian people. I think I'm both. I think as a Zionist, I support the existence of a Jewish homeland in Israel, and as a human being, you know, I support any group of people to have basic rights. And I think that when Israel wins this war, and when Israel is able to actually get rid of Hamas, there'll be a great opportunity for Palestine to enjoy some real peace that can be lasting and that can actually be good for everyone.
Yeah, no, look, I agree with everything that you just said, but I want to get back to my question and push back a little bit. Did you always believe this, or your views have gone more towards Israel? Again, I agree with you. It doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. It doesn't mean you don't think Palestinians don't have rights. I believe they have rights. We agree on that. But it just seems to me, watching your videos, that you, and again, on October the 13th, you didn't mention the hostages. You weren't talking like you are now.
I wasn't
You were
aware.
more.
I wasn't aware of any hostages at that point. I wasn't aware that Israel was
Oh,
attacking.
wow, really?
So what I received as information is that you know, Israel is this settler colonial state, and they're oppressing these people, and you know, you got to get behind supporting these people. They're innocent victims, and I didn't do any digging at that time or look into it.
Okay.
I just heard the same thing that people tell me about what the United States did to the Native Americans. The same thing that people tell me what the United States did during the transatlantic slave trade was the same exact narrative that I heard about Israel. So I heard it over and over again. It sounded like it was plausible to me. I didn't look into it, but I just, you know, grabbed the shirt and hung out with the people that are
Ah,
repeating it to me from different angles. And I probably would have continued believing that, but it just got so crazy where these guys are telling me that every single university in America supports genocide. Things like that started making me question, like, that sounds a little crazy, man. You're telling me Harvard, Princeton, Yale, all the Ivies, the public universities like UCLA, they all support genocide. I was like wondering, why would all the big universities across the nation all support genocide? And why is the solution to that we have to overthrow capitalism? None of it really added up or made sense. So it just, hearing it over and over again from these guys, it was making me question if they're legit, if they're a trustworthy source, if they're credible. And as a UCLA student, I think the bare minimum that we as students do when we are allowed to publish something is we have to fact check our sources, and we have to make sure we have credible sources. So when I learned about SJP, well, after this stuff happened on Friday, April 26th, and learned about the BDS movement and learned that these guys support terrorism, it started becoming real obvious, looking at the facts, doing a little bit of research. And I haven't even dug that deep, but just looking at the facts a little bit, it just became very obvious that these guys are liars. And on top of it, the timing of it is very suspicious. Why is it that, like you just pointed out, there was a terrorist attack in October, and why was there this big push in October of all this anti-Israel propaganda that I received? And then if you look at me, I've been had the shirts, like I had the shirts years ago, but why around October did they push it again to where I'm really hearing about it, but I didn't hear about anything about what Israel was going through. Even like, there sometimes some people would show up and start putting up these posters. They said missing, and I thought they were just regular missing posters, and people would rip them down. And I was like, that's weird. Like, why are they ripping down missing posters? Come to find out, those posters were for the hostages that were taken out of Israel by that terrorist organization, and these students were ripping down their missing posters. When you think about it, that's pretty sick. Like, that's pretty hateful to do something like that. So in
yeah.
hindsight, is 2020. I can look back and clearly see that there was a wave of propaganda, that it was anti-Israel, that it was for a reason, that it was funded by these terrorist groups, that they infiltrated these universities. But in a moment, I just felt like, you know, Israel's doing some people over there dirty. You know, I'm not over there. I didn't think I'd ever be over there. So what can I do? You know, they telling me just wear the shirt and use the hashtag, and that's what it was.
Yeah, no, so it definitely sounds like option B, which was their bad behavior and the way you were being treated made you question the core assumptions. And then you dug deeper and realized you were being fed lies. And it sounds, just from what you've described now, you have already a pretty good handle. I mean, it's just such a rabbit hole to go down. And I've been studying this for like over 2 decades, but you've already got a pretty good handle on things, judging by what you just described. And we can talk offline as well. And if you have any questions, we can have a lot of discussions. And, you know, so you were probably more, let's say, anti-Israel based on what you were being told. But what's also interesting is that you have a history, you've always gone for the underdog. I've noticed that. You have a history of pushing back against anti-Semitism.
Right.
I noted that in 2022, there was an English professor that his behavior in class was very worrying. He was displaying some anti-Semitic behavior, and you filed a complaint against him. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so my first quarter at UCLA, I took a course called California Literature with Professor Blake Almendinger, who was highly regarded, who went to Harvard University, who published a book about African Americans in California. And I thought it would be a cool class. And he started out the class on day one, just being very sexist, very racist. He just doubled down on everything, class after class. And in one class, he asked a Jewish student to submit something about her identity. When she did, he said he would read what she wrote. Instead of reading what she wrote, he told the class what she should have wrote is, if the Jewish religion is so life affirming, why do they complain so much? And then he went into a caricature of a Jewish person and said, Oy vey, I wandered in the desert for 40 years. I survived the Holocaust. All I do is complain. And he started bursting out laughing in front of the class. And it was a very awkward moment for everyone. It was very quiet. It was very tense. And I explained to him that, did you think what you did was right? Did you think that you were allowed to say that? And he said, yeah, I had Jewish friends. I made that joke in front of them. They think it's hilarious. And at UCLA, there's a California education code where you cannot record the professors without their permission, or that's a crime. So I asked him, hey, if you think that you did the right thing, can I record you saying that on the record so I can show the student conduct office what you said? And he was like, absolutely not. And I told him, like, that's because you know it was wrong. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to file a DPO complaint against you. And he retaliated against me for telling him that I was going to file a DPO complaint. So me and a Muslim student went ahead and filed a DPO complaint against him.
Oh, wow.
And he was able to, for some weird reason, this was covered up for over 2 years. But on May 2nd of 2024, he was found more than likely to have committed the offenses that we alleged that he committed. One being the anti-Semitic remarks he made in front of the class, which witnesses testified to, and two being the retaliation against me. Now, the other things that he was accused of, he was found more than likely to have not committed, and that was the Title IX offenses against me and my daughter. He invited my daughter to come to the class and then used explicit language in front of her. He always
Oh, wow.
he spent a lot of the class making explicit references about me, and so he was found more than likely to have not committed those. And I've asked the school to meet with me to explain why they found that, based on all the witness testimony, based on all the evidence that we were able to present. And they have not met with me yet to explain what the reason is, but I have a right to be met with their explanation as a student who filed a Title IX complaint. So at this point, it took over 2 years for us to get to the bottom of it. I'm satisfied that we were at least able to, have a full investigation that I can upload to the internet. It's on X and my Dropbox. Anyone from the public can access it, and I think that people should not overlook that length of time that led up to what we're seeing now, where anti-Semitism was at the campus. Nothing was done about it. It was covered up, and nobody wanted to address it or admit that it was going on.
Right. So it sounds like this experience has also, influenced how you looked at everything going on now. That you don't just see this as like just one sort of point in time, but everything led up to this point, this cinder box of anti-Semitism going unchecked, and you feeling that it's very unjust, and you wanted to fight back against it. Would that be a fair way of putting it?
Right. Exactly. I think. I mean, I'm just a regular dude. I really come from nothing. I really struggled my whole life, and I think that my background is, you just stand up for what's right. When I was jumped into a gang at a very young age, and I had to bare knuckle box every day on the side of the building that we lived in. And once I went around my peers and realized a lot of them never been in a fight a day in their life, and so those who was getting bullied or picked on, I really stood up for them, and I really took up for those who wasn't able to defend themselves. So in these situations at UCLA, a lot of these students are very humble. They don't really know how to advocate for themselves sometimes, and it's nothing for me to put my neck on the line to stand up for them, because I know that what's UCLA? I've survived a lot worse than that. So there's nothing that they can do to retaliate against me that I haven't already seen worse. So it doesn't just have to be anti-Semitism. Any form of discrimination that I come across at UCLA or anywhere else in the workplace, out and about in the streets, I'm always going to stand up for what's right.
Yeah. Well, you're what we call a mensch. I don't know if you've heard that word before, if anyone's called you that before. I'm assuming yes, but a
Yeah.
mensch, like a really good dude. And unlike these protesters who are false social justice warriors, you're the real deal. You really, you really are the real deal. I'm very interested to ask you, do you believe that now that anti-Zionism is a manifestation of anti-Semitism, or they're completely separate things?
I think it's the same way that people will say, I don't like urban things. They'll say urban instead of saying black. Back when hip hop was getting popular, they would say, we don't have anything against the rappers, we just have something against the thugs. I think it's really the same thing. Instead of being honest, and like if you go to Mississippi, somebody gonna tell you how they really feel about you. But here in Los Angeles and New York City, where you have these like liberals and progressives, they won't say what they really mean. So instead of just speaking honestly and openly, they'll say I'm against Zionism, but what they really mean is they're against Jewish people. And you can just have a conversation with them, see what they ask them. What do you mean by that? Ask them, like, go a little deeper, and if you let them tell on themselves, they'll explain that they don't believe Israel has a right to exist, and they'll tell you all these conspiracy theories about Jewish people and scapegoat them and blame them for this and that. And it to me is just it's really disgusting. And I think it's 2024. We should be able to be open. We should be able to be honest. We should be able to have real dialogue. And so that's what me and those around me that I be with, we're facilitating open and honest dialogue. People are getting the opportunity to say what they want to say, how they want to say it. And unfortunately, some haters be trying to block that and not let that happen. They reported my TikTok page and got my live banned for a while. But we're gonna keep going hard. We're gonna if we can't dialogue on a social media site, then we'll just do it in person. We'll just always have ways to keep it open, keep it honest, and let people have their different perspectives and opinions, and let us be open and honest and push back. So when somebody's saying, "Oh, I'm just against Zionism," we can let them explain what did they mean by that, and we can push back and explain to them why that's wrong and what's underlying that.
Yeah, I hit the nail on the head. I've been studying this, as I said, for decades. And, on my website, I have this series called Anti-Zionist, Not Anti-Semite of the Day. And I'll basically take the social media post of someone who claims to only be a critic of Israel. And more often than not, you see the same tropes, like you just described. Zionists controlling the government, the financial markets. They'll use the word Zionist a lot. In some cases, they really let down their guard and get sloppy. And they'll have, the hook nose, Nazi era Germany cartoon caricatures, and sometimes they even use the chosen people or some sort of euphemism. They're talking about Jews. So it sounds to me like you're really within quite a relatively short period of time. As this all started unfolding for you in April 26th, the end of April. So it's been like 2.5 weeks or something.
Right.
And you're already hitting a lot of nails on the head, I've got to tell you. So keep on this journey, and you're definitely on the right path. And yeah, as you mentioned, dialogue is important. And I mean, you find that people on, the pro-Israel people, and you probably saw this when you're on campus, right? Their protests weren't about shutting up the other side. That they wanted more. They're more about dialogue. They're about singing and the flag, saying, "Hey, we exist. We're proud of our Jewish homeland," and they're not trying to negate a lot of Zionists. And you mentioned this, right? We're not negating the right of Palestinians to live in peace and security. It's not about you guys don't exist, get the hell out, we want to genocide you, God forbid. It's about living together, but you don't see that so much from the other side, and it all plays with this anti-Semitism. I think one of the reasons why people, not us, of course, but other people get fooled and they think that anti-Zionism is not related to anti-Semitism is you see a lot of, well, I don't know if it's a lot, but there are Jews who are part of the protest groups. In fact, one of them that stopped you, if I'm not mistaken, his name was Ethan Friedland or something like that. It's one of those names, it's a Jewish, especially a Jewish person will know that that's a Jew.
Mm-hmm.
Me and some other, or many other, let's say, proud Jews, we call them as a Jews. Why do we call them as a Jews? Because they usually start every sentence as a Jew, and then they start to bash Israel. It sort of gives them street cred that they're Jewish, but their whole identity is defined by, as a Jew, I'm now going to bash Israel. if you understand what I mean. They have no other kind of Jewish identity. In fact, a lot of them take a verse from the Jewish Bible, which is also, you know, what you call the Old Testament, pursue peace. But the rest of the verse is, it actually, if they cut the verse in two, the rest of the verse talks about the land of Israel belonging to the Jewish people. They take that part off and they just say, we're pursuing peace. You know, tikkun olam is another term you might have heard, repairing the world, and they misuse it to mean, you know, somehow bashing Israel.
Right.
What do you personally think about that? When you saw, I assume that you came across some people that you knew were Jewish, and they were part of the people that were, did it like confuse you? Did it anger you? How did you react to that?
Well, to me, I mean, I told, there's one named Ryan. He gave an Al Jazeera interview. He told me he's half Jewish. He's the SJP organizer. I just give them advice that, you know, I know you guys are going through something. You know, you're being rebellious. You're in that phase. You're gonna grow out of it one day. You're gonna look back on this time and really regret this. And I just give them the advice to go back to their family and discuss things with them and get a different perspective. And you know, I told Ryan, you know, maybe you want to take your family up on our offer of you going to visit Israel and see things for yourself, and you know, just tap in with your people that love you and care about you, because I feel like they're just being exploited. They're being used by a cause that at the end of the day doesn't really care about them. They're just using them for credibility, using them for some type of moral authority, and then when they're done with them, they'll just put them to the side and go on to the next thing. I don't see 2 years from now SJP really being SJP. I think they'll move on to the next thing that's trending and be on the next momentum wave. So I saw a lot of these people was with BLM when BLM was a thing, and when people found out that, you know, the BLM people in charge wasn't even giving the money to the Black community, they were out buying mansions and doing everything for themselves. People got tired of that and they moved on to the next thing. So I think it's like any other trend, any other wave, they're gonna ride it till it's not really popping for them no more, and then they'll just hop on to the next thing. So I think that those who are Jewish, it doesn't really confuse me. It doesn't throw me off. I just, you know, I feel for them. It's just like if there was a fight for African American reparations, and you had a Black person who shows up to all the meetings and saying, well, as a Black person, I don't think that any Black people deserve any type of reparations, you know, I wouldn't really get angered or anything. I just feel for them and try to counsel them and get them advice to, you know, do something better with their time. But, you know, they will call me the agitator while they're actually agitating. So it's just kind of hilarious to me.
Yeah. Now, in one of your early videos during the protests, you explained how you believe that the protesters were protesting against civilian casualties, that's what they were protesting about. Right. Which sounds well and good. Do you still believe that, or do you believe, what do you now believe is their actual goal with these protests?
Well, yeah, I've talked to them. I've asked them what their goals are. They've asked me to represent them and to come in and be their media person. And they've asked me to, like, say on the record that I support their movement, which I'm not going to do. And, you know, I have charges filed against multiple protesters, criminal charges. And I also have a civil case that I'm working on. So, you know, I know what their movement is. I know what they're about. I know that if they had their way, they would overthrow the United States government. I know that they would get rid of Israel, and I know that they would bring in their own new rulership and their own way of doing things. And I know it wouldn't be a good time for me and many others. They wouldn't have a democratic way of doing things, and they definitely wouldn't have a way of doing things where someone like me can come to LA and start out at Skid Row and work his way up to UCLA. And UCLA does not have affirmative action. California got rid of affirmative action in 1996. So I didn't get into UCLA because of the color of my skin, like a lot of these protesters have alleged to me offline. I got into UCLA because I worked hard and I earned my way into UCLA. So I love my way of life. I love the American dream. I'm living the American dream, and I'm gonna continue to advocate for America to continue to be a sovereign nation and our way of life to exist. And I'm gonna continue advocating for Israel, who is outnumbered, who is surrounded by enemies, to continue to exist and to continue to have their way of life.
Amen. But like, I'm just going to go back to that. That's crazy. That's so bigoted. Offline, these dudes are telling you only got in because of affirmative action. That's vile. Right. That is so patronizing and condescending. And and I think it plays into what you were saying before about they're the white savior, right? You're the damsel in distress. You can't be empowered. You can't be an empowered, intelligent Black guy that worked hard, because it's their job to save you. I think it all plays into what you were saying before. And it just makes me so furious to hear that. Absolutely furious. Now, who do you believe is ultimately behind the protests? You've mentioned SJP a few times. Do you think that they're ultimately who's behind it, or someone's even behind them? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I know that they're part of a bigger groups. I know there's like a BDS movement, and there's some groups that are above that. And I know that, like, just doing a little digging, it really, a lot of the money goes back to Qatar. There was a Politico report that there's some Biden donors that have been putting money into it. So I think it really goes back to these groups. Like, I think one of the names is the Muslim Brotherhood. There's just these different groups that really are, you know, terrorist organizations, different places internationally that are funding and funneling this money. And one thing I'll say right now is I don't know everything, but I actually have been tapped in with, you know, professors and cybersecurity people and all this stuff. And there's some people that are going to help me. We've already talked about it offline. They're going to help me to really learn and understand what's going on, and to present it to the public in a way where the public can learn
Amazing.
with me. They can learn with me. So
Yeah,
we'll learn together in real time. So those who are in the center, those who might not even, you know what's going on or be concerned with it, they'll be able to learn with me, and we'll be able to learn together and understand where that money's coming from and who's
yeah.
funding, why it's all going down.
Well, once again, you're on the right track. I mean, I've done a bit of research, and I can also send you some information on this. But you're really on the right track. So a number of years ago, I did some posts on this, and National SJP, listen to this, was founded at a conference sponsored by the BDS, you mentioned them, National Committee, BNC as they're called. They're like the father organization of all these, you know, the BDS movement. But they also had one of its members, they're called the PNIF, the Palestinian National something force. I forget what that's an acronym for. But one of the founders of that was the arch terrorist Yasser Arafat. Okay, and as you mentioned, there are terror groups. I don't believe that Muslim Brotherhood was one of the terror groups linked with that particular organization. But listen to this: Hamas is one of the groups that was intrinsically linked to the PNIF. Not just Hamas, it was also the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. And that, by the way, they also perpetrated some of the atrocities on October the 7th. It wasn't just Hamas. They also were involved in the kidnapping and some of the other activities on that day. And also the popular PFLP, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. So I'll send this information to you, you know, in due course, Milagro, but you're definitely on the right track. And you also mentioned Qatar, and again, you're 100% on the right track. If I'm not mistaken, they have been pumping money, contributions to American universities since about 1988, and in around 2017, it was measured at about $11 billion. So they're definitely having an impact on campus in the education system, and that's probably why you have the faculty who are joining in all of this. You know, they're getting grants.
Right.
Ultimately from Qatar, and Qatar is one of the biggest terror supporting funders in the world. So it's definitely a rabbit hole that you're on top of, and you're definitely on the right path. And as I mentioned, I'll be happy to share what I've come up with you and learn more as I go along.
Right.
So you made it clear you're a Zionist and you're an Israel supporter. But I want to mention something that your detractors are claiming. You know, they again, your condescending detractors, who the same people that offline tell you that you probably got into UCLA just because of affirmative action. You know, these kind of people. They also can't accept that you're a thinking guy that thinks deeply, learned on your own, came to these right conclusions. And they're saying, listen, look at you. You know, you're wearing a Zionist. You have a merch store now. You're selling T-shirts. You have a GoFundMe. This is what they're actually saying in the comments to your videos and elsewhere on the internet. So, what do you say to that? How do you respond to those detractors that think you're just doing this for clout and money?
Yeah. So I'm a single father. You know, I was born and raised in homelessness. I live in poverty. When I got accepted into LSU to go to grad school, I knew in my heart that I couldn't go to grad school, because by me living here in Los Angeles, starting out at Skid Row, if I go to Baton Rouge, Louisiana to go to grad school, I'll have to be homeless again. My daughter will have to be in a shelter with me. We'll have to start from nothing. So somebody told me to start a GoFundMe so that when I go to grad school, I can be all right. You know, they saw what was going on. They saw how the people treated me. They also counseled me to start a civil suit against them. to file criminal charges. I did both of those things. And as far as the shirt store, I think that my design is pretty original, pretty unique. It's not
It
the
is.
trademark. It's not trademarked yet. So hopefully I can get a trademark on it and do even bigger things with it. But anytime someone tries to criticize me for doing the right thing or what I would say living the American dream, I find it hilarious. So you're telling a black man in poverty in America who's riding the bus, who doesn't even have a car, who's been stopped with his daughter by these protesters when they drive past and see us, that he shouldn't be trying to work his way up and get some of the basic things that you guys have taken for granted your whole life. Let's be honest here. The average American household has a car. My mother didn't have a car. She walked on crutches. She had bipolar disorder and paranoid schizophrenia and was physically disabled, and she walked everywhere on crutches. She slept on the floor. She didn't have a mattress. She got our clothes from St. Vincent de Paul. We had hand-me-downs. We went to thrift stores. Before Macklemore thought it was cool to go to thrift stores, and these guys think it's cool to thrift, we actually went to thrift stores because we lived in poverty. And so I can't relate to anyone telling me in the United States of America not to dream of better things. There was a time in New York City when I was a kid, we had a bag of rice for a whole month. And in the morning, we would eat rice with sugar. And in the evening, we would eat rice with adobe seasoning. And it was 3 children and my mother. And that's all we had. And we were happy with that. We prayed together. We laughed together. We played together. And we were content to have 1 bag of rice for the whole month. These privileged dudes would never know how to struggle. They could never walk a mile in my moccasins. So for them to criticize me for having a GoFundMe, and I live in poverty, and I protested for a lot of their things that they had going on, and they never helped me. For them to drive away from all these events and doing these things and watch me and my daughter walk. I walked from Downey, California to Koreatown with my daughter so she could get to daycare once. And that was 6.5 hours because I didn't have bus fare. That was 14 and some miles. So I don't think that these people could ever comprehend me. They can see a little clip and they can judge me and they can put me down and try to say whatever they want to say about me. But to actually live through what I lived through, to experience what I've experienced, and to do it with a smile on my face, resilient and happy and thankful and content, I don't think they could ever go through that. So I would never let a protester from their side really get to me. They sprayed F money on the ATMs. And that's when I knew at UCLA, when they're spraying F money on the ATMs, that these guys are a joke. That means you're so privileged that you don't have to go to work today. You can sit inside the tent and wear your mask and assault people and spew your hate. But if you actually had a job to go to, a child to take care of, a real responsibility in life, you would see things from a different perspective. So for them, all I could say is you don't know me, you don't get me, and that's fine. I don't get you. We don't get each other. We don't mix. We're like oil and water. We don't go together. I'm here living the American dream, advocating for America, and you're over there trying to destroy America and destroy what America stands for. So any person that ever criticizes me for getting to the money, they don't know. I had this tattoo and this tattoo since I was 14 years old, and it says "Get Money, Boy," because I'm gonna get to that money, boy.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely inspiring. And after this interview, I upload it. I'm going to have links underneath to your GoFundMe and to your Etsy store. I, for one, want a pink Zionist shirt. It's something that's been missing from my life, I think. And when I saw it, I'm like, yes, that's exactly what I want. I just wish I had one. I was wearing one right now for this interview. I kind of feel, I'm wearing black. It's a bit boring. But yeah, I fully support you. I just wanted to ask you that question. And I'm pretty sure anyone listening to you can see how genuine you
are. I hope
are.
some of them are watching. I hope some of them watch this. I hope it doesn't just go out to your supporters and your followers. I hope the haters get to see this too, so they can hear my answer, because they be yapping, they be yapping, and they
yapping.
They need to hear me clap back.
So have you had any offers from anyone to bring you to Israel at all?
So people always say it. They always say, like, you're gonna come to Israel. When you come, we'll host you. You're gonna have Shabbat dinners with us.
Shabbat dinner. Hey, I'm also wanting you for Shabbat dinner.
For sure. But no one's actually like. I think it's gonna happen because it's just the energy and it's the vibes, and people have said it enough. I think when you put things out there, into the universe, it can really occur like that, and it can really materialize.
Yeah, absolutely.
So people are saying that I don't have a single stamp on me or my daughter's passport. So we both have passports and we have not used them yet, but we have them. I'm still finishing up my graduation requirements at UCLA. But once I graduate, I'll tell the world I finished. I'll vlog about it, and hopefully, I'll have a little break, and maybe I can, go to Israel and take people up on their offers, you know.
Yeah, so I'll see what I can do, if I can pull any strings. I can't promise anything. But yeah, if we can get you out, it'll be fantastic. And I would love to show you around, and maybe we can do some videos together while you're here. You'll be definitely in demand. You have a huge fan base, obviously the Jewish community in the States that you've been in touch with. But here in Israel, you're also pretty well known now. And I'll do everything in my power also to get you out here. If anyone deserves it, it's you and your sweet, sweet daughter, who also deserves a break. She's been your accomplice on campus, been subjected to the hate, and that must be pretty traumatizing. She deserves a nice break as well. So what are your plans moving forward? You've mentioned you're a musician, so I believe that, or I assume that that's also part of your plans, advocacy and music. Can you tell us a bit about moving forward? What do you plan to do?
Yeah. So me and my brother, we do music. We also been in the studio with David Levy. So he has the Chosen Coalition, and he also has the Peace Movement. And so we've been hanging out with bro. We've been doing a song together. He's producing it. His guy Rufus is also producing it. Me and my brother are doing some hip hop lyrics on it, and it's called We the People. And I'm talking about Israel's right to self determination. I'm
Oh, wow.
talking about a lot of positivity and love and peace. It's a clean record. It gets people moving. Everyone who's heard the record so far has loved it. We're not even completely finished with it yet. We still have a couple more things to do with it, but we're hoping for a quick turnaround to have it publicly available very soon, so people can listen to it, so people can share it with their friends and family and loved ones, and play it. And yeah, we're gonna continue to make more music and continue to spread positive vibes and continue a positive movement everywhere we go.
I love it, man. I love it. Can I put you on the spot? You can say no if you want. Can we get a few bars of one of the songs?
Yeah. So I can rap anytime, anywhere, any place.
Oh, yeah.
But
Okay,
but
let's
but
do
uh,
it.
but uh, the song that we just wrote, I don't have that one memorized yet. But I can rap something else. But it
Yeah,
wouldn't
rap
be.
anything. Just give us a sample of your talents, which I'm sure they're immense,
All
judging
right.
by everything we know about you now.
Yeah, for sure. So I said, Africa's a tragedy. It's sad to see my people suffering daily. It's crazy. But then I guess it had to be. They heard about a paradise the Europeans had to see. Had to enslave, colonize, and become the majesty. Genocides and famines, machetes, pistols, and cannons. Age increased to death until the last man standing, the mother of all life on this miserable planet. The first civilizations made the white man panic to discover that the mother of the earth was black. It's hard to believe. It's even harder to seize the facts. Why? Because they covered up the truth with lies. Africa, the place that black youth despise. It's our culture and our history, a mystery to me. How we traded for the slave ships and liberty we see. Money with white faces, that's what I'm inheriting. You wonder why I'm ashamed they call us African American. Even the light-skinned people, it's in my veins too. I feel the pain and the anger and the shame too. If it was the 30s or 40s, they'd probably hang you. But since you a citizen, now they want to claim you, judge you in their courtrooms, teach you their textbooks, brown pride and black pride. To me, that's the best look. Afro puffs and medallion chains, you get buck trying to hold on a black stallion brains. And I remember them days as a kid growing up in them homeless shelters, New York City, all 5 boroughs I slept in. Blood, sweat, tears of this nation is what I stepped in and slipped and gained my grip and my grasp, and not to trick you and not to lie either. Because all the days as a kid when I had a high fever, it was my mom with white skin that nursed me, 6 months in the womb of a white woman that birthed me. I'm not afraid of my race, it's only earthly. I'm a half-breed, it's okay, it doesn't hurt me. Spiritually, we're all the same because we're children of the Most High. So I'm going to spread my wings now, Israel, and I'm going to let the Holy Ghost fly. You dig?
I dig, man. I dig. I loved it. And I have a feeling that your Israel-related song, and maybe there's going to be a few of them, I have a feeling at future protests, they're going to become part of the chants of the pro-Israel side. Mark my words, we'll play this back in the year or two, and people will say, Dave, you hit the nail on the head, man. This guy, he's the stuff of legends. Fantastic stuff, Milagro, my friend. Before we go, how can people follow your work?
Yeah. So on YouTube, I'm Daddy Milagro. On Instagram, I'm Daddy Milagro. On TikTok, shout out to Hella Sketchy. I'm Cupid Soldier. And on X, formerly Twitter, I'm Cupid General. And if people can't find me on any of those sites because they don't know how to work this stuff, they can literally just type in Milagro Jones on Google, and your boy's gonna pop up.
Absolutely. Well, this was a highly informative interview, a discussion rather. I didn't feel like it was so much an interview, but a really deep discussion. And, I've been a fan of yours since I saw those first videos. And Nothing I heard today made me less of a fan. My admiration for you, it just grows and grows and grows. And you know, we're so used to the world. It sometimes feels like, you know, as a Jewish person and a Jew that lives in Israel, everyone seems to be against us for most of the time. It just feels that way. I know not everyone is against us, but I do understand how difficult it is to go against the tide. And for someone like you have no skin in this game. You're just an honest dude, hardworking dude who believes in doing the right thing. And for you to stand up, go against your preconceived notions, to not go with the convenient path, but take the road less traveled, as it were. And not just do that silently, but to like put yourself on the line in physical danger and, you know, receiving hate. I don't underestimate that. Like, not everyone is made of that sort of stuff. And people would be forgiven for not standing up like you have, just to protect themselves and their family. So I just want you to know, Milagro, that I so appreciate what you're doing. I'm not alone. So many people, so many of my fellow Jews and Zionists have such respect and admiration for you. And we want to give you the prayers and the strength to keep doing what you're doing. You are bringing positivity to the world. You are a spark of goodness in this world, which seems so dark at the best of times. So please, we're behind you, and friends for life. And we've got your back just like you've got our back. Please understand that. We love you, man. We love you.
For sure. And make sure that y'all pray for your boy to find him a good, honest, loving wife.
Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
somebody that can help me take care of my daughter, you know, help me hold down the fort. So put that prayer into the atmosphere, and see what it's gonna be, you know.
You're a real catch. And if we have to use a matchmaker, make me a match, we'll do that. But I have a feeling you've got a lot of offers coming up. I have a feeling you'll be doing okay. You've got the skill set. You're the package. Anyway, thank you so much for this discussion, and we'll speak again. Take care.
Sure.
Shalom, shalom.